Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the English Learning Podcast. I'm Jason, your host.
And I'm Julia, your co-host. Hi, everyone. We're so excited to have you with us today.
Today's topic is super useful. We're going to talk about how to talk about your job in English. Whether it's for a job interview, a networking event, or just casual conversation, knowing how to describe your work is really important.
Absolutely, Jason. A lot of English learners tell us they get nervous when someone asks, "What do you do?" And it can be tricky to explain your job clearly in English.
Exactly. But don't worry, by the end of this episode, you'll learn simple ways to describe your job. Talk about your responsibilities, and even ask others about their work confidently.
And the best part is, we'll do it in a conversational way, just like a real-life chat between friends. So you can listen, repeat, and practice along with us.
That's right. Before we start, let's do a quick icebreaker. Julia, tell me, what's one interesting thing about your job that people might not expect?
I often get asked if I only teach grammar all day, but actually I spend a lot of time helping people speak naturally and feel confident in English. That's my favorite part.
That's amazing. And for me, I love talking with people from different countries about their work. Every job has a story, and today we're going to help you tell your story in English too.
Exactly. So let's get started and make talking about your job in English easy and fun.
So, Julia, let's talk about why it's important to know how to talk about your job in English. Why does it matter so much?
Well, Jason, there are many situations where people will ask you, "What do you do?" For example, at a job interview, during a networking event, or even when you meet someone new at a party.
Ah, that makes sense. So if you don't know how to explain your job clearly, it can be a bit awkward, right?
Exactly. And sometimes learners feel shy or nervous because they think they need to use difficult words. But the truth is, simple English works perfectly.
That's true. I remember my first time explaining my job in English. I said, I help people learn English online, and that was enough.
Yes. And even a simple description can make a great impression. It shows that you are confident, clear, and friendly.
Plus, talking about your job gives you a chance to connect with others. People often ask follow-up questions, and that can lead to interesting conversations.
Exactly. So learning how to describe your job in English is not just about language. It's about communicating and connecting with people in real life.
That's a great point, Julia. And don't worry, listeners, after this episode, you'll have the tools to talk about your job naturally and confidently. All right, Julia, now let's talk about some common vocabulary we can use when talking about jobs and work. This is really helpful for beginners.
Yes. First, let's start with job titles. Some common ones are teacher, doctor, engineer, nurse, manager, and developer.
Exactly. And don't forget, you can also describe your role more generally, like I work in marketing or I work in education.
Right. Next, let's talk about job responsibilities. Words like manage, teach, create, design, help, and support are very useful. For example, you can say, I help students improve their English, or I design websites for clients.
And don't forget workplace vocabulary, Julia. You can say office, company, school, hospital, or online. For example, I work in a hospital, or I work online from home.
Exactly. And here's a small tip for our listeners. When describing your job, try to use simple words first. You don't need complicated phrases to explain what you do.
That's right. So, a simple sentence like, I'm a teacher. I help people learn English is perfect. Simple, clear, and easy to understand.
And later, you can add more details about your responsibilities, skills, or experiences, step by step.
Perfect. Now that we know some key vocabulary, let's move on to how to describe your job naturally in English. All right, Julia, now that we know the vocabulary, let's talk about how to describe your job in English. How should we do it?
Well, Jason, a good way is to include 3 main points: your job title, your main responsibilities, and your workplace or industry.
That makes sense. Can you give an example?
Sure. For example, I can say, I'm an English teacher. I help students improve their speaking and writing skills. I work at an online language school.
That's clear and easy to understand. And listeners, notice how Julia used simple sentences. That's key. Don't make it too complicated.
Exactly. Another example, I'm a software developer. I create websites and applications for clients. I work in a tech company.
Perfect. And if you want, you can also add something interesting about your job, like, I enjoy teaching because I get to meet people from all over the world.
Yes, that makes your description more personal and engaging. So remember, job title, responsibilities, workplace, and a small, interesting fact. That's all you need.
Great. Now, we're ready to talk about how to speak confidently about your job, which we'll cover next. All right, Julia. Now let's talk about confidence. Many learners know the words, but they still feel nervous when talking about their job. How can we fix that?
The first tip, Jason, is to speak slowly. Don't rush. It's okay to pause and think about what you want to say.
Absolutely. And another tip is to use simple sentences. You don't need long or complicated phrases. For example, saying, I help people learn English is perfect.
Right. Also, practice makes confidence. Try speaking in front of a mirror or recording yourself. Listening to yourself can help you improve.
Good point. And don't worry about making mistakes. Everyone makes them, even native speakers. What's important is that you communicate your message clearly.
Exactly. Let's do a quick example, Jason. Ask me about my job like you're a listener.
Sure. Hi, Julia. What do you do for work?
Hi, Jason. I'm an English teacher. I help students improve their speaking and writing skills. I work at an online language school, and I love meeting students from different countries.
See? That sounded natural, clear, and confident. Listeners, you can do the same.
Yes, remember, confidence comes from practice, simple sentences, and believing in yourself.
All right, Julia. Now let's talk about some common mistakes learners make when talking about their jobs in English.
Yes, Jason. One big mistake is using complicated words unnecessarily. Learners often try to sound smart, but it can make your sentences confusing.
Exactly. For example, instead of saying, I am engaged in pedagogical activities, it's much simpler to say, I teach English to students. Clear and easy.
Another mistake is forgetting to mention your responsibilities. Sometimes people just say, I work at a company, but we want to know what you actually do.
Right. So you could say, I work at a company. I manage social media and marketing campaigns. Simple and informative.
A third common mistake is speaking too fast because of nerves. Speaking quickly can make it hard for others to understand.
Yes, and don't worry about pauses. Take a breath, think about your sentence, and speak slowly.
Exactly. So remember, simple words, clear responsibilities, and speaking slowly, that's the key to avoiding common mistakes.
Great tips, Julia. Next, we'll talk about phrases for asking about someone else's job, which is equally important in a conversation. All right, Julia, so we've learned how to talk about our own jobs. But in a conversation, it's also important to ask about someone else's job.
Exactly, Jason. And the good news is there are some simple and polite phrases you can use.
For example, "What do you do?" or "What's your job?" These are short, easy, and very common.
Yes, and you can also ask a bit more politely. May I ask what you do for work? Or could you tell me about your job?
Perfect. And don't forget follow-up questions. For example, do you enjoy your work? Or, what do you like most about your job?
Right. Follow-up questions make the conversation more natural and show that you're interested in the other person.
Let's do a short example. Julia, I'll ask you like I'm meeting you for the...
Sure.
Hi, Julia. What do you do?
Hi, Jason. I'm an English teacher. I help students improve their speaking skills. I work at an online language school.
And then I can say, that's interesting. What do you enjoy most about your job?
Exactly. That's a natural conversation. Listeners, you can practice these questions with friends or even by yourself.
All right, Julia. Now let's move on to talking about your work experience and skills. This is very useful, especially in interviews or professional conversations.
Yes, Jason. When you talk about your experience, you can start with how long you've been working in your job. For example, I've been an English teacher for 5 years.
And then you can mention some specific skills. For instance, I help students improve their speaking, writing, and listening skills.
Exactly. Another tip is to talk about what you've achieved. For example, I created a new online course that helped over 100 students improve their English.
Great! And don't forget to use simple past or present tense, depending on your experience. For example, I worked in a hospital as a nurse for 2 years, or I manage a team of 5 people at my company.
Right. And here's a small trick for beginners. You don't need to list everything. Just choose 2 to 3 main skills or experiences that you are proud of.
Yes, Julia. That keeps your answer short, clear, and interesting. Let's do a short example.
Sure, go ahead.
Hi, Julia. Can you tell me about your work experience?
Of course. I've been an English teacher for 5 years. I help students improve their speaking and writing skills. I also created online courses that have helped over 100 students learn English effectively.
Perfect. That's clear, confident, and shows your skills. Listeners, you can practice this too by preparing a few sentences about your own experience.
Exactly. Remember, practice is the key to speaking naturally and confidently about your experience and skills.
All right, Julia. Now that we've covered vocabulary, descriptions, and skills, let's talk about real-life situations where you might discuss your job in English.
Yes, Jason. There are many situations like meeting someone at a party, introducing yourself at work, or networking events. Even casual conversations with friends count.
Exactly. Let's do a quick party scenario. Julia.
Go ahead.
Hi, Julia. What do you do?
Hi, Jason. I'm an English teacher. I help students improve their speaking skills. I work online, so I meet students from many countries.
Perfect. That's clear and friendly. And now, let's try a networking event scenario.
Yes, you can add a little more detail to show professionalism.
Hi, Julia. Nice to meet you. Can you tell me about your work?
Hi, Jason. I've been an English teacher for 5 years. I help students improve their speaking, writing, and listening skills. I also develop online courses to make learning easier and more fun.
Excellent. Notice how Julia added a bit more detail for a professional setting.
Yes, the key is to adapt your description depending on the situation. Short and friendly for casual talks, longer and more professional for work or networking events.
Exactly. Listeners, try practicing both ways. It will make you feel confident in any situation. All right, Julia. Now it's time for a mini practice activity for our listeners.
Yes, this is your chance to practice talking about your job in English. Don't worry if it's not perfect. The key is to start speaking.
Here's what we'll do. First, Think about your job title, then your main responsibilities, and finally, where you work.
Exactly. And here's a simple structure you can follow. I am A, your job title. I, what you do. I work at, your workplace or company.
Let's do an example together. Julia, go first.
Sure. I am an English teacher. I help students improve their speaking and writing skills. I work at an online language school.
Perfect. Now, listeners, your turn. Pause the podcast and try saying your own sentences out loud.
Yes, and if you can, record yourself. Then listen and see how you can improve. You can try adding one interesting detail about your job too, like why you enjoy it.
Remember, the more you practice, the easier it becomes to speak naturally and confidently.
Exactly. Keep practicing every day, even just a few minutes. You'll notice improvement very quickly.
All right, Julia. Before we finish, let's give our listeners some motivation and tips to keep practicing talking about their jobs in English.
Yes, Jason. The most important tip is consistency. Practice a little every day, even if it's just 5 to 10 minutes.
Exactly. Another tip is to use real-life situations. Talk to friends, colleagues, or even practice in front of a mirror. The more you use English, the more natural it becomes.
And don't forget to celebrate small successes. Even if you speak just one sentence correctly, that's progress. Confidence comes from recognizing your improvements.
Absolutely. Remember, mistakes are part of learning. Every mistake is an opportunity to get better.
Yes. So keep practicing, stay positive, and enjoy the process. Speaking about your job in English will get easier every day.
Exactly. And the best part is, the more you practice, the more confident and comfortable you'll feel in any conversation. All right, Julia. That's a wrap for today's episode on talking about your job in English.
Yes, we hope you found it helpful and that you now feel more confident describing your job, your skills, and your experience in English.
Remember, practice makes perfect. Use the tips, vocabulary, and examples we shared today. And don't forget to try the mini practice activity.
And listeners, we'd love to hear from you. Share your own job description in the comments or tell us which tip helped you the most.
Yes! And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new podcast.
Exactly. Thank you for joining us today. Keep practicing, stay confident, and we'll see you in the next episode.